PLD Projects presents Holy Snokes, the Star Wars podcast, featuring PLD and Matty Gunner. May the Force be with you, always. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to PLD Projects. Welcome to this week's special edition of Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast. And welcome to the first live stream I've done in probably about 6 months or so. This is an interesting rejoining of the live streaming world, temporary. I don't believe I'll do it all the time, but it's nice every once in a while to get out there and just, F it, do it live. And sometimes circumstances, they push you to do that. In this case, they have. Obviously, this is not the usual day for Holy Snokes. Usually we are Wednesdays. However, if you may or may not have followed me on social media and things, I've only talked about it briefly, but we have had some, shall we say, medical issues in the PLD household. Nothing too tremendously out there, but my lovely wife, Kim, has been going through some tough times with some pain. She has numerous things going on, like an autoimmune disease. She's got a back issues, hip issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's, we're doing our best with it as all. But we are pushing forward as best we can. She's getting a hip surgery in March and in two times in March, double hip replacement surgery. So she's not hobbling around like an 87-year-old anymore. Hopefully that's coming up soon. But unfortunately, until then, it's been up to me to really pitch in a little bit more and take care of her more when we need to. And that's what happened on Wednesday. Wednesday, we had planned to go. We had planned to go do live Holy Snokes, not live, but do Holy Snokes as usual with Maddie. And but unfortunately, I had to take her to her doctor's appointment because she couldn't drive herself at that point. So, that's life does take precedence, obviously. Unfortunately, Matt and I couldn't make anything else work out this weekend due to his scheduling and my scheduling and everything else. So instead of I could have just left it and done Bad Batch Season 3 on Wednesday, our big full review of the first 3 episodes that are dropping Wednesday or Thursday, depending on when the Bad Batch drops. I know it's supposed to be Wednesday. Sometimes they do that Tuesday thing. If it's Wednesday at midnight, we should be doing our regular Wednesday show and going through all 3 episodes. But instead of waiting till then, I figured I'll do our planned show by myself and I'll just do it live. Why not? So I just want to say thanks to all of you who have been supporting us throughout the years. Really great to be live, seeing some people in the chat. Great to see Galaxy Geeks, Bedore. Love you guys as well. Sending love to Kim. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys. But so let's get to it. This week's episode, if you can see, but the title is The Odds Are. I decided to pull some names out of the hat of the Bad Batch characters and situations and make some last-minute predictions to see what's going to happen as we dive forth. Obviously, we've had the 8 episodes have gone around in streamers to different people. I am not one of those lucky people. It's actually good I'm not one of those lucky people because, quite frankly, this is a show I want to savor. I don't want to watch 8 episodes right away and get into it. I want to go week by week and let it all unfold around me. I've really been into this world so much, into this series, that it's hard for me to even consider watching this all in one sitting. I want to really savor each beat, take some pauses, let it sink in, and go from there. Bedore, love you too. Go to sleep. You can come check us out later. It's really good to see you, though. I hope you're doing well, Bedore. And for you on the audio podcast side, I am doing this live, so I will be interacting with the people in the YouTube chat as I see them come in. Of course, anybody else is watching, I do have a Streamlabs set up, streamlabs.com/PLD projects. I had to open it for the first time in a long time. I had 6 months since I last live stream, I think. But either way, let's get into our, if you've heard us before, you've seen us before, we usually do a main topic, today being the Bad Batch predictions. We also go through the news of the week since the last time we were here. So we'll do both sets of things here and now. But if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe. Let us know what you feel. Give some comments. We're always looking to push things in a new direction. I do have an announcement to make about the audio side of things coming soon. We are going to be expanding a little bit under the Gilmore Media network that we are under now. That should be a lot of fun as we do things that you might like, especially if you're a fan of one show here and not others. Maybe make it easier for you guys to find some things. But yeah, let's get into it. This week's news. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of news, as always, to dive into, some more important than others, of course. The first bit of news we got, and I always curate things from Star Wars News Net. I really like them as a source of news for Star Wars. They really know how to, separate things from the real, the factual, the rumor, all that stuff. And I know if they're talking about it, it's probably serious. And if it's not serious, then at least they'll sell you. This is definitely a rumor. So let's go from there. The first bit of news: Dave Filoni did an interview regarding about the great Carl Weathers, but also, which we mentioned last week, of course. But the important part of this interview that we hadn't discussed this last week. Inside that interview, he mentioned how excited he was for Jon Favreau directing The Mandalorian and Grogu. The quote from Dave Filoni: "There's so much spinning in the galaxy right now. You know me better than to commit to any one thing. No mind trick works on me. I'm excited about what we're doing right now. I think it's going to be great. Obviously, with John at the helm, it's going to be fantastic. And he's so well studied in Star Wars. He's got such a great shorthand, and I love collaborating with him. I'm just excited to share the future of what we're doing." And that was actually in regards to a question about the future of Mandalorian, whether it be in season 4. That really hasn't been declared yet, right? They haven't had a question whether it's just going to be the movie and then a season 4. Is the movie taking the place of season 4? It's all kind of up in the air, and Lucasfilm is being, as usual, very tight-lipped. I kind of wish they'd be a little looser-lipped at times for something like this. Even if it's not decided, let us know what you're thinking. Say, if they want to say this is replacing season 4, great, let us know so we're not speculating about it. If there is a possibility of season 4, say that too. Say, you know what, things are still in motion. We're looking to see how things go with this. We're looking to see what our storytelling needs. And is that still up in the air? Fine, let us know that too. That's okay. It's okay not to have the answer. Just let us know what the thought process is a little bit. But I digress on there. I get the other argument because, sometimes we've had that in the past. And when people have said something and then all of a sudden it didn't work out, then all of a sudden people get all upset. Oh, Lucasfilm is doing this again. Lucasfilm is doing that again. Just be honest. That's all I say. Be honest. And if you can be honest, Lucasfilm can be honest with us, then hopefully the fans will learn to be forgiving. And not even forgiving is not the right word. Just take it as they give it to us. Don't take it as promise. Take it for what they say. If they say this is potentially in the works, then it's potentially in the works. Makes sense, though. Good to see you, Jeremiah, in the chat. As always, appreciate you, brother. All right, next up, we have Bob Iger confirming the 2026 release for Mandalorian and Grogu, and reportedly beyond that, production starting in June. Definitely, Bob Iger mentioned in a call with his conference, with the Disney shareholders and things. He mentioned some release dates, including 2 at this point Star Wars release dates in 2026. May 2026 and December 2026. This is something that we have heard before. He specifically mentioned Mandalorian and Grogu to be one of those films. He did not declare whether that be May or that be December, but I'm still guessing May because, quite frankly, the way they've said it a few times is that Mandalorian and Grogu would be leading the charge of the Disney slate. So that makes sense to me. And that makes sense to everybody at this point. It feels like that the Daisy Ridley movie, or the Rey Skywalker movie, might need a little bit more time to finish cooking. Stephen Knight's still writing the script. The strike, of course, pushed things back a little bit. And as we know, The Mandalorian had this season 4 already written and in place, so it'd probably be a little bit easier for Jon Favreau to, slice and dice a little bit and streamline it into a 2-hour movie than trying to write a new movie or trying to finish a new movie for Daisy Ridley. And quite frankly, let's be honest with you, Mandalorian is probably the most, out of all the projects Disney has been the most universally liked. Season 3 was a little divisive overall, but the Mandalorian was definitely much more of a crowd pleaser overall than the sequel trilogy, which had its divisive moments for various things. So it kind of makes sense if you're going to return to the big screen with something that is a fan favorite, which is a ultimately loved property, and then get into some of the more divisive stuff that will hopefully win fans over as we get to the future of Star Wars for that. A lot of things going on in that Star Wars film world, and we're going to get to see some of them sooner than later, finally. That's the important thing for me. 2019 it's a long time away. It has been a long time since 2019, and to know that we have something coming at 2026, that's good. That's good for me. As far as production starting in June, that does map up with what we have heard. We were hearing at one point February, this month was going to be starting pre-production and things of that nature. So that would make sense. So they're doing some pre-production work. That actual production work would start in June, and that would be in line. Give it some time to film, and then give it a year or so for effects and digital and reshoots and all that kind of stuff. That lines up right for that May 2026 release date. So that all, again, maps out. Nothing surprising there, but always good to hear rumblings and comments from Bob Iger. So, all right, next up, more news of the movie world, in one that we don't know when it's coming out, but we do know that they're still working on it. Donald Glover was being interviewed for his Mr. and Mrs. Smith show on Amazon, and I have not watched it yet. I do want to, and the wife wants to, so it's something we'll probably do after we catch up on Reacher season 2. I actually love the original movie. I think it's a fun movie. Seeing Donald Glover in this role, that could be great. That could be a lot of fun. But he was asked about Lando, of course, which has been languishing for a while. Obviously, initially it was announced way back when as to be a streaming series, Disney Plus series. Somewhere along the line, without any official announcement, Donald Glover had talked about it and said that it had turned into a movie that he and his brother were writing. And then Kathleen Kennedy also kind of confirmed that. So it seems that Lando will be a movie. When? I know Donald Glover's a very busy person. Kathleen Kennedy has said that numerous times, as when they've asked her about updates, it's usually saying, well, we got to work around Donald Glover's schedule, what he wants to do. Most importantly, he had an interview recently where he mentioned Lando, and there's a very interesting point that I want to point out in there. His quote said, Maya Erskine, who is his co-star for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and I talk about no's a lot. It's the only power you have in this industry. But I said yes to Lando because I like the characters and my kids love Star Wars. Never a bad reason. At this point, I just know when something is going to be good, because you're really fighting the industry when you put your imprint on a franchise of that magnitude. And it's not like I was going to say, it's not like I hate the industry, but now I'm like, do I hate the industry? I feel like I have enough control. And maybe you get painted as a control freak, but it's like, yeah, control allows for the vision to be singular. And if the vision is singular, people want it more. The less it's singular, the less people want it because they feel like they could have made it. Look, we live in a time where anybody can fucking make anything. You go on TikTok, there's literally every type of thing. There's documentaries, there's puppetry, there's yarn and stop motion. So why would you want to see something you feel like you could have made? Now, what I take from that is an interesting point. Some of the criticisms for Star Wars recently has been that they haven't allowed the directors to kind of do their own thing. And that's kind of led to some friction and obviously some director changes. And you had Lord and Miller with the solo film. And obviously they got, kicked off reportedly, or they mutually decided to leave. I'm not sure exactly how it went down, but they left because their vision was definitely something that was more unique to them. And they were replaced by a great filmmaker. No doubt Ron Howard is a great filmmaker, but he's someone who's definitely a little more traditional and can probably fit the mold of what Lucasfilm was going for. And if that's the case, then Lucasfilm has been controlling that narrative with their directors, taking little steps where things haven't worked out. We know there's rumors about Rogue One, how Tony Gilroy came in. They're sometimes maybe exaggerated, but there's some interesting ideas about how much is Lucasfilm tinkering with things? Should they tinker with things? Obviously, they feel very protective about the Star Wars franchise, and rightfully so. I mean, Dave Filoni now being like pretty much the grand poobah as far as a creative side goes, he's definitely a person who feels very protective. However, there's something to be said about letting directors have their singular vision. And I feel like we're treading back in the right direction. It doesn't always work for people. I know that Sam Raimi did Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and some people had a lot of issues with that. I love that it went more Sam Raimi and wish it had gone even more Sam Raimi. I feel like you have talented people, give them the reins and let them succeed or fail. Obviously, you can't give them full 100% when you're in a continuity and a connected universe like Star Wars. But it does feel like Donald Glover feels comfortable with at least right now, with the control he has. And that is very interesting to me. I kind of can't wait to see where that goes and what a Donald Glover written in charge of Lando looks like. I'm excited about that. I think you should be too. But let me know in the comments whether you're excited about that. Does that matter to you? Do you want to see more control from Dave Filoni? Would you like to see more auteur control? I don't know. Next up, Bad Batch Season 3, we're going to get into. They did have a Season 3 sneak preview clip that was leaked. Not leaked, I'm sorry. It was presented on StarWars.com. I don't know if you want to hear anything about that. So if you are trying to avoid all complete spoilers, there's not a whole lot spoilery to it. You can stop now, and I'll give you about 5 minutes, and I'll just kind of go through it. Basically, all it was, and I'll go 3, 2, 1, spoiler time. Basically, all it was a little scene between Crosshair and Omega and Mount Tantus. Crosshair was in his cell. Omega has somehow gotten out of her cell, snuck around. It seems like this is something that goes on all the time. She can't escape Mount Tantus, but she can find her way out of her, quarters, cell, whatever. It's kind of like she's half a prisoner, but not totally a prisoner. She visits Crosshair and they have a conversation, Omega trying to spur him to escape or attempt to escape. And Crosshair's pretty beaten down. He's a pretty beaten down man at this point. Does not wish to do much with her, kind of pushes her away. They have an interesting conversation about trust. Crosshair saying she trusts too much. She's at Omega countering that he doesn't trust enough. It's a good setup. That's it. My favorite part about the sequence was we see Crosshair with his hands and they shake a little bit. And it's very tough to see a marksman whose hands are his weapons. His steady hand is his greatest quality, and they're shaking. He's a broken man, so it's going to be very interesting to see what his character does, and we'll talk about that with our odds making later on in the episode. But great scene, great little sequence. I'm ready to go. Let's move forward to next week already. Speaking of filming and season 2s and season 3s and season 4s and everything as we're going, Andor has completed season 2 of its filming definitively now. Diego Luna confirmed it in a social media post saying, "Today is the last day of filming of Andor. I could not be more thankful to the entire crew for this amazing experience and the years of hard work. More than 700 people have worked on this production, and it's impossible to say goodbye and thank you to everyone individually, which is why I write here. Thank you for the love and the wonderful experience." Great to hear. It's great to hear. Sad that it's over in a way, but for us, it's not over. We haven't even begun to watch season 2. But Diego Luna, Stellan Skarsgård has been very, very forthcoming about how much he likes season 2. I think we're going to be in for a treat. I feel like we're going to get a little more connectivity to the Star Wars universe as a whole. And I think that will solve. There was some criticisms about how it felt a little different than Star Wars before. I get that. That's very, it's valid criticism. It's still good. It's still great. So I think you can have both. But I think this might have a little bit of a more connectivity. I kind of feel like season 2 may be even more beloved than season 1. We'll have to see. That's coming out, of course, we believe in 2025. It has not been on our list for 2024. It sounds like this will probably be the first thing released in 2025. And I am excited for it. So just a little quick note there. Next up, we have a rumor, or a report, I should say. Collider is one of them. It says that The Acolyte shall be coming out in the summertime. Now, again, we have not had an official release, another official announcement about that at all. The only thing we officially know is Bad Batch coming out next week. We have had the reports that's saying we're going to have the Bad Batch Season 3, Tales of the Jedi Season 2. We're going to have The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew this year. All the reports before and rumors and everything else and unofficial statements had said that Skeleton Crew had been pushed back to November-ish of this year, the holiday time for this year, it is said, which leaves Acolyte to be a summertime show. Sorry, Maddie. I know Maddie wants his Halloween Acolyte, but I have a sense that it's going to be a summertime show just as announced, probably, which means we'll probably get a trailer. We'll only get the one trailer, I assume, somewhere around May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. It would be nice to have a trailer drop there. Maybe even with the Phantom Menace coming back to the big screen for its anniversary. It'd be interesting to see if we get a Andor trailer before Phantom Menace. I'd like to see that as well. Get to see it on the big screen. That'd be nice. Very exciting times for that. I can't wait for that. I know that's Maddie's favorite upcoming thing, I believe, so I'm all excited for him. Speaking of the Phantom Menace's 25th anniversary in the prequels. That was announced as part of a announcement of a big interview session from Empire magazine. Empire did a tweet on social media, a tweet saying, "Hello there," in the famous Star Wars lettering, and Star Wars fandom went overly nuts and, of course, guessed everything from Obi-Wan Season 2 to a revitalizing of the Clone Wars. To it was all sorts of like things were running rampant. Obviously, I think some people kind of said, "Hey, hold up, let's not go over the top here." Empire is not a place that's made a lot of announcements of things before, and quite frankly, those people who were trying to exercise caution were correct. It was basically an announcement that their magazine, which is on sale now, I believe, they has a lot of interviews. You can find it on their site as well. Interviews with many of the prequel actors and people involved with that. Hayden Christensen, Ian McDiarmid. A bunch of them have some great moments talking about the prequels and in their anniversary time. Part of that is also that the Phantom Menace will be returning to the theaters in time for that anniversary. Some clips from the interviews. Hayden Christensen stated, "The scenes I got to do with Anakin on Ahsoka was a bucket list item I didn't even know I had. When I was getting ready to do Obi-Wan Kenobi, I started my Clone Wars deep dive, and I loved it. I remember thinking, man, it would be so cool to see some of that in live action." Speaking about how you initially learned about the Clone Wars, Christensen mentioned, "That was described to me by George Lucas when we were doing episode 3, the things that were going on between episode 2 and 3. So when Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau told me they wanted to explore some of that, I was so game, and I loved how it came out. When we finished doing the prequels, it felt like that was it, and my journey with the character was over. So they get to come back and do more Anakin with Darth Vader as an amazing opportunity. The scenes I got to do as Darth Vader on Obi-Wan Kenobi, that was huge for me. Being able to add a little bit more connective tissue to the character and to bridge the gap into Vader a little bit more was a very worthwhile thing." I don't know. I want to say real quick how happy and excited I am that Hayden Christensen is back. It feels like such a warm story, I want to say comeback, because he didn't need a comeback, but he did basically at least semi-retire from acting, and now he's kind of come back to do a little bit more. But the warmth he received from the fans, the stuff he's done, it's been great, high quality. He really has written a very fun, exciting chapter for himself and for the Star Wars fans. So, next up interview was with Samuel L. Jackson. As always, he tends to pimp out for himself in Star Wars. He loves the character of Mace, loves that he got to be in Star Wars. He stated, much like his Star Wars character, Samuel L. Jackson was short but impactful with his words. In the small part of the interview that Empire shared, it asked what his thoughts were on Mace Windu's death scene, to which he exclaimed, "He's not dead." Empire then asked Jackson, would he like to see a Mace Windu Disney Plus series, to which he replied, "Everything, yes." So Samuel L. Jackson, unsurprisingly, would want to come back to Mace Windu as part of some kind of Disney Plus series, also implying that somehow he lived the Emperor's Force Lightning, Palpatine's Force Lightning, and the drop from Palpatine's office onto the Coruscant limitless bottom. As people have come back from death before, you never say never. I personally, as much as I love Sam Jackson, as much as I would love to get more into Mace Windu, I kind of feel like I kind of want him to stay dead. But that's just personally, of course, how they do it is always more important than anything else. Because if they can bring anybody back and they do it right and they do it well and it's written well, then magic can happen, as we saw with Darth Maul. So, let's see what happens. I'm doubtful it does. I think Sam has been talking about this for years. I don't think Dave Filoni or anybody has any real plans to do anything. I think at best we would get a Mace Windu animated series maybe before episode 1, or maybe between episode 1 and 2. Who knows? That could be something that we could explore, and Sam could come back and voice the character for sure. But I cannot fault his excitement. I cannot fault his passion, and I love to see it. So next up, Ian McDiarmid. I'm talking about Rise of Skywalker and the prequels. Said the thing I'm most pleased about, the only came to a head when they asked me to come back for the Rise of Skywalker, is that every single act in all of the Star Wars franchise, every single evil act in all the Star Wars franchise, is either directly or indirectly down to that character. That is total evil, and that's strangely satisfying as an arc. I do feel fortunate to have been able to do it, and other villains of cinema now have to compete with that. A lot of people said it was ridiculous. Of course, he was dead at the end of The Return of the Jedi. And frankly, I think George thought he killed me too. But JJ thought it would be a good idea, and I wasn't going to argue with him. I felt that Palpatine always had a plan B, probably a plan C, D, E, and F as well. And he was an expert in cloning. So, of course, the funniest part, and that kind of got the most tread, was when they asked him about Palpatine having sex, given that Rey is his granddaughter. He, as a very proper English actor, he said, please don't pursue that line too vigorously. But yes, he does have sex. It's a horrible idea to think of Palpatine having sex in any shape or form. But then, of course, perhaps he didn't. Maybe it's all to do with midichlorians. And don't ask me what those are. Never trust your granddaughter. That's the t-shirt Palpatine got made. Shortly after his death, the Palpatine family reunion is sure to be an awkward one. A lot of fun. I just love Ian McDermott. I think he's another one of those people. He's a pleasure to have as part of the franchise. I love listening to his notations about the original trilogy, about Return of the Jedi, the prequel trilogy, Rise of Skywalker, and him coming back, of course, for Bad Batch and for Clone Wars and things. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful. So. Next up, we got the Mandalorian as a game in development from Respawn. This is a very recent news article, came out today. The website was reporting that the game will allow players to control a Mandalorian bounty hunter, capturing bounties dead or alive for credits during the reign of the Empire at its peak. They point out it is currently unclear who the Mandalorian will be at this point. It's not guaranteed the player will be playing Din Djarin, but it could be Boba Fett, it could be Bo-Katan, it could be a completely new Mandalorian character. But it does seem to be a very exciting development. I wish Maddie was here for this one specifically. I'm not a gamer. I don't know. Maybe this will push me to get to a console and finally play some Star Wars games. I do like the idea of a Mandalorian bounty hunter. Seems like a lot of fun to play. So I'm sure this will develop more as we go on. We'll have more news, and Maddie can comment on it when he comes back for sure. Another last-minute news story that would have not have made it had we gone live or be recorded on Wednesday. High Republic: Temptation of the Force was announced. Next part of the High Republic series, a sequel to Eye of Darkness, and it showcases that we might have a little bit of a love angle, a little romance angle between Avar Kriss and Elzar Mann. That's been shown before, has been talked about a little bit before, has been intimated, I should say. We might get a full-on view of the High Republic's era of romance within the Jedi Order. I don't know. I've been reading the High Republic. I haven't gotten to Eye of Darkness yet. I'm still finishing up Phase 2. I'm reading Quest for Planet X right now. And then we'll be getting into Phase 3. I can't wait to get to that as well. High Republic is a great time. I hope everybody has enjoyed it. So that's speaking of High Republic. Young Jedi Adventures. Young Jedi Adventures has all of their episodes from Season 1 out now on Disney+. And they had some connections with the High Republic at times. I have not watched all the episodes yet, so I won't go into any kind of deep dive or anything like that. I will watch the rest of them. I've only watched about, I want to say 6 or 7 of them at this point. I will make time eventually. That and Resistance. I never actually finished Resistance either, to be honest with you. But I do want to. They are high-quality shows, and I hope they get to further their stories along. Okay, final news bit before we get into the odds segment. We had a bunch of Bad Batch Season 3 interviews come up with producers, with head writer Jennifer Corbett and producer and showrunner Brad Rao. Interesting teasers for the Season 3 and interesting things indeed. Specifically, Brad Rao talked about Ventress. He says, without much spoilers, he just said we love Ventress. I'll just say, without going into too many details, as a creative team, not just me and Jen, once we knew this was possible, we got really, really excited. A lot of talk went into it and a lot of thought went into it. Even for the design, we looked at unfinished episodes of Clone Wars, the ones that were the inspiration for Dark Disciple. There were already designs that were created in some early story reels. We wanted to honor that look, her incredible hair, her incredible lightsaber. What color is that lightsaber? Oh my God, there's so much going on. A lot of that came from the Clone Wars unfinished episodes. So we were really, really excited to be able to honor that and in Bad Batch for a very specific reason as part of Omega's story. We talked with our creative team to figure out how we could bring her in, that we could bring her to the storyline. And we pulled designs from the Unaired Clone Wars arc, which inspired the novel Dark Disciple, and we're not contradicting anything that happened in Dark Disciple, which we've heard before. They did mention that before, and it's an interesting side piece. What's going to happen? I don't know. Maddie has this idea that it was a flashback. We're going to learn more about that. We'll talk about that more in the odds. I'm going to say that this next line, I'm going to give you another 5-second thing. I'll read a quick interview that may answer that question. It's vague, it's not definitive, but just to avoid in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But I will not say that all of the answers of the mystery of interest will be told in the Bad Batch show. There may be future answers down the road in something else. But it was really great to have that character in our show interact with our characters. It was really cool. That seems to me to be that it's not a flashback, but it also teases something in the future. Interesting, possibly. Okay, we are back. We are back. We are back. We are back from any spoiler content. Other things that were mentioned, we talked Min Na Wen's character, of course. Fennec Shan comes back, and Brad Rao commented saying that Ming Na is on fire in the episode. The episode? I mean, we only have one Fennec Shan? I don't know. Jennifer Corbett stated, she's such an incredible character, and Ming Na is such a fun person to be around. To pair them with the Bats again, because the last time they interacted was a very different story. I think it speaks to what Hunter and Wrecker are willing to do in order to complete the mission and the deals they're willing to make. We want to bring back someone who is the sort of character to make the Bats go, oh, are they going to make this deal? She was the perfect fit because she's the boss. Having them in the episode with her doing what they do, I mean, it was fun from breaking the story all the way to the end of the animation. I was just like, love to have her and many other things. Finally, Jennifer spoke on Emery, character that, quite frankly, I've forgotten about. When I saw the trailer, I completely forgot. It's been a while since I'd watched it. Omega, she lives on Camino, but her experiences with the Bad Batch have really formed who she is as a person. Whereas Emery's childhood was very different. Being raised the way she was, being under the tutelage of Dr. Hemlock, she's now sort of a tool for the Empire. We wanted to show the interactions between them because Emery is very clinical, whereas Omega is the opposite and wants to have this kind of connection to others. It's been great seeing their dynamic throughout the season, and we have Keisha Castle Hughes, who previously played Naboo's Queen Apollonia in Revenge of the Sith, playing her, and having her back in Star Wars has been fantastic. She really brought a lot to her character. Okay, that will do it for the news bits. Let us go on to the main topic. I'm going to take a sip of ginger ale, and then we'll move forward with the odds are segment. Okay, in this segment, initially Maddie wanted me to do a wheel of sorts so I could spin off and we talk about whatever came up. But I wrote about too many characters and I kind of want to talk about them all. So why limit myself, right? So Maddie, I love you, but I decided against it. All right. I tried to get Maddie's input on this as best he could. This is a little bit last minute when I decided to do this. He was going to talk off the cuff. So I'm going to tell you his odds that he gave me. He gave it to me in a DM, so sometimes it's hard to match up with the formatting. I'm going to do my best. First up, we're going to talk about Asajj Ventress. Now, if you guys have any questions, by the way, let me interject, or any statements, I will read them all at the end of the segment, the news, the odds segment, so we don't interrupt. But if you have any questions in there, let them know. Let them go from there. So, okay, Asajj Ventress. My first question, whether it was our age-old comment, was it a flashback? Is it Night Sister magic? Or is it something else? How does she come back? We don't know. For me, I'm going to say the most likely thing is, at this point, the most likely thing is Night Sister magic. I wanted to believe Maddie's flashback theory, but I kind of feel more that they wanted to have the character back in some way. I'm hoping they have a really good arc written for her. So I feel like it won't just be a flashback anymore. I think it's going to be Night Sister magic that allows you to come back. We talked about that when in the book Obi-Wan and Quinlan Vos had later to rest. There was some green light there. As we know, green light means Night Sister magic. And quite frankly, there's a lot of Night Sister magic going around in Star Wars nowadays. So it would make sense to have that continue to be part of the story. So that's my guess on that. Okay, the odds. Specifically, does she die again? Is she coming back only to die again? Maddie puts this as 1,000 to 1. And quite frankly, I think it's 5,000 to 1. I don't think there's any way if they bring her back, she'll die again. Unless it's a temporary. The only reason the way it would happen is if it's some kind of temporary magic that only gives her a certain amount of time back before she dies. That could be. But I kind of have the feeling the more I think about it, the more I talk is that they want to use her for future stories, whether that be live action down the road or whether that mean more animated series down the road. I don't know. But I have a feeling that she's going to be living, so I don't think she's going to die again. Next up, related, I could have made this his own character and talked about him more, but I'm going to slide it under the Asajj Ventress label. Quinlan Vos, obviously after Dark Disciple, Quinlan Vos and Asajj Ventress shared a relationship. Quinlan Vos went dark and then redeemed himself. We know he has been a part of the path. As far as Obi-Wan Kenobi show goes, they mentioned his name on the path wall, that he had helped bringing people away from the Empire, secreting them away. Main question, though, does he make an appearance in the Bad Batch? Asajj Ventress coming back with where Quinlan Voss was. Does he make an appearance? Maddie gives it a 2,000 to 1 shot. I think it's a lot better odds than that. I'm going to say 100 to 1 shot because, quite frankly, I feel like you can't tell Asajj's story anymore without having Quinlan Voss appear, or whether he be on his game, whether it be a part of the Bad Batch, or whether he's mentioned. I don't know. This is going to tie in. This is going to tie in to the last question I had, which is where does she end at the end of the Bad Batch season 3? Where does she end of the Bad Batch season 3? I believe that she is going to help the Bad Batch, but then she's going to go on to an unknown story, and that's where Quinlan Voss will be. I almost have the prediction now that Asajj Ventress will have her own animated series, and that might be the next animated series, The Adventures of Asajj, Quinlan, and the Path of the Force. I know I say wait till the end, but I want to throw some quick things out there from the chat. Jeremiah Morris saying, also with that thing, I think Asajj comes back in Tales of the Jedi, and that's where we see her. That could be an interesting point, too. They kind of have you show her in Bad Batch. Maybe we don't know exactly how she came back. They saved that for Tales of the Jedi arc. That'd be an interesting way to do it. Absolutely. I got, of course, Ken Knapsack in the chat from the What Lovely Force Center. Giving them odds. Love it. PLD is the Canto Bite bookie of Star Wars. You know it. You know it. I've been doing this for years, folks. I love Canto Bite here. Some bright lights, big city. Can't go wrong, right? William Harold, of course, never tell me the odds. That's the other side of Star Wars, right? The other side of Star Wars. Well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go against Han Solo. Don't tell him. I don't want Chewie to find out. He may turn my arms off, and we don't want that for sure. All right, next up, we have Crosshair. Crosshair, a big development, of course, in Bad Batch was Crosshair's leaving of the team, becoming their enemy. He had some glorious moments at the end of season 1 where we had him having to work with his team, even though he was definitely ostracized. His relationship with Omega. Season 2, he made his growth, his developments, some of the great moments of, he had very few appearances in season 2, but his appearances were big ones. When he actually killed his Imperial officer for basically treating them like scum. He finally seems to know where his worth is and where the Empire does or does not value him. But he's a broken man as far as we can see in that clip that was released. He feels like he is a broken man. So what do we have here? Big question. Of course, when it comes to, after watching end of season 2, it's always a question of who is going to die. I don't like the idea. I want to see them all live and be happily ever after. But in this case, I don't know. The chances that Crosshair dies. Ooh. Maddie gives it a 1-to-1 shot. And I don't know if I can disagree. I might go a little higher. I'm going to give it a 5-to-1 shot. But quite frankly, it does make sense. It does make sense that Crosshair has a big redemption arc, and his final redemption arc is a big Star Wars trope. He's going to have to sacrifice himself in order to save the day. That's the prediction that right now I'm thinking. I think he might be the big one as far as keeping Omega safe. It's going to be the long con game. He was the last one to fall, in love with Omega, as it were, to become part of her daddy's. And I think by the end of season 3, they're going to bond to the point where he is the one that's going to declare himself as part of the squad by redeeming himself and not letting Omega be killed. Whew. That's a tough one right there, folks. I'm going to need a sip of my ginger ale to go on. This one actually might be worse. That one actually could be worse than Tech. I know Tech is more beloved, obviously, but Crosshair, there's something about a Star Wars bad boy. There's something about a redemption story that always kind of gives us that kick, So, all right, the other questions we had with regards to Crosshair as far as odds go, chances are that he is the one who kills Hemlock. That's assuming that Hemlock dies, I guess. But he is a baddie. He is a Star Wars, the ultimate villain of season 3, we believe, outside, obviously, of Palpatine, outside of maybe potentially Vader. That's an idea. Maybe we'll talk about that. They can't die. But Hemlock could, because we don't know anything about where he is after the fact. And when it comes to I don't want to say sidebar story, not a lot of lesser story for sure, but a off the path of the main, the Skywalker saga, you need your bad guys, and those bad guys, the ultimate bad guys, who would die like Palpatine at the end of Return of the Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. You have to have those final outcomes for those villains. So I do think Hemlock goes. Crosshair being the one to kill him would do us right. It might even be connected with how he saves Omega. Maddie gives him a 3-1 shot. I think I'm going to go with Maddie on that one. I'm going to say 3-1 shot that Crosshair is the one who kills Hemlock. That's my call there. So, all right. Next up, reuniting with his brothers. Does Crosshair actually reunite with his brothers? I think this one's an easy one. Somebody put that to me, and I say it's a 1-1, just like Maddie says 1-1. I think we've even seen it in the trailer. There's a shot in the trailer where we saw Hunter, we saw Wrecker, and just on the side there, you saw the long tubular motion of Crosshair's weapon. I believe Crosshair definitively will end up back with his brothers. Might be temporary, might be a quick thing. But I'm not quite sure. I'm quite sure it's going to be a reunion either way. And that's all we need. Now, does Crosshair save Omega? Is he the one that saves Omega? Maddie gives it a 10-1 odds. Now, going through what I've already talked about as far as his dying, his killing Hemlock, his reuniting with his brothers, I'm going to give that a 4-1 shot. Now, it's quite possibly that Omega is the one that saves Crosshair. Because quite frankly, she's definitely, if there is a heroic journey in Star Wars, not the redemption arc, if there's the heroic journey, I think it's got to be Omega. That's the typical, archetypical Star Wars story, the young, maybe a little naive, but full of hope, full of youth, full of energy, full of vim and verve. She's the one that makes that grow throughout the arc. And so what is her ultimate goal? She's the ultimate hero of the story, potentially. So it might be just the other way around, that Omega is the one who saves Crosshair. I'm turning that around now. I'm going to go back and say Maddie's had 10-1 odds. I'm also going to give that one 10-1 odds. I'm talking myself out of things as we go down. This is how this works, folks. I don't know what you guys think. Tell me in the chat what you guys think. Do you guys think what are the odds that Crosshair saves Omega, or is it going to be the other way around? Speaking of Omega, actually, I'm sorry. I almost forgot. Doing this alone without Maddie is a tough thing. This is how much I rely on my partner. I do have one last thing. Where does Crosshair, my prediction about where does Crosshair end the Bad Batch story? It's kind of funny. I posited these questions to Maddie as well. And Maddie's questions were all like, I don't know. I don't think he gave him enough time to really come up with the answer. I think he's trying to avoid all spoilers. He doesn't want to even have spoilers in his head. He doesn't want he would want to think about those spoilers because they might end up spoiling himself for the show. But where does Crosshair end the Bad Batch story? I do think he goes. I think he's not going to make it past. We don't have a lot of stories where the villain who redeems themselves lives on to be redeemed, to live on post-redemption. It's that reason I would love to see Crosshair lives. That'd be a really first time in Star Wars you get to see a villain get redeemed and then have to live on afterwards and see how that works. Granted, this is the end of the Bad Batch series, but it doesn't mean it's the end of the Bad Batch characters. It would be great if we had a Crosshair moment down the line, maybe in Tales of the Empire, Tales of the Clones, Tales of the Rebellion, something we get to see the story later on where they redeem Crosshair, who's still living with the fact that he had gone all in with the Empire and he realized he was wrong. I think we need those stories. Sometimes it's an easier thing to make the ultimate sacrifice. You have that, like Darth Vader saving Luke, powerful moment, one of the most powerful in the series. But he didn't have to face judgment afterwards. What would have happened if Vader had lived? He would have had to face up judgment and really work to redeem himself even further. Crosshair could kind of do that in a much more minor way. Crosshair didn't have quite the genocide actions that Vader had, but he definitely did some murdering. Some of those people who definitely be alive without him. So interesting tale indeed, and a true sense of redemption of how you have to redeem yourself, making mistakes along the way, and more than mistakes in that case. All right, let's move on to Omega. The chance that she dies, since we're asking of all the characters, let's get this one right out of the way. Maddie, infinite to 1, and I happen to agree. I don't think there's any way Omega passes. Omega is the star of the show, a Disney Plus show, and let's be honest with ourselves. It was aimed towards a younger audience than the movies are. I mean, you know as well as I do, this is an adult storyline as well. Adults can definitely get the story, but I don't think Disney Plus story has the young girl protagonist to be the one who dies at the end of the show. So I think she's going to live out. Sure, I think she's going to have a mostly happy ending, or have some bittersweet moments for sure. But at the end of the day, she'll be standing strong, and she'll have done us all proud and done her brothers proud, her father's figures proud. Now, here is a question. I want to say we had Ken Knapsack in the chat, and he's still in the chat. I watched the Force Center, one of the Force Center shows. I don't remember which one necessarily it was. I watched so many of them. Jennifer Landa on that show had an interesting prediction or thought, I should say. I don't think she predicted it, but she had a thought with regards to Emery, who we'll talk about soon. And the thought was Emery potentially a biological sister of Jango Fett? And that blew my mind, I got to say, because I never even considered that. Omega calls her a clone, calls her one of us, et cetera, et cetera. But really all Emery did was basically say that she was her sister. So in a case of possibilities being out there, doesn't that kind of blow your mind? Wouldn't that be a great reveal if all of a sudden we learn that she's the biological, much younger sister of Jango Fett and not actually a clone? It's a complete amazing possibility of things. Which, going back to where we are now in Omega, is that why? Is Omega perhaps like Boba an unaltered clone? Obviously altered that way, but not with the age thing. Or is she potentially a biological daughter of Jango Fett? She's supposed to be a clone, everything else? I don't know. Maybe that's why she's so special. She has that Jango Fett gene in her, a more pure gene, because she is actually a Fett. A lot of things are out there. Exactly, Kat. Fett family reunion. I think the possibilities are out there. Now, Maddie gives us a 50-1 shot. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. A 50-1 shot that she's a biological daughter. That's actually a lot higher than I would have given it initially. But after Jennifer had mentioned Emery, it made me think, and I'm going to give that the same odds, a 50-1 shot. I don't think it's extremely likely. I think Emery is a lot closer. But it definitely leads for some interesting conversation about who the clones are versus the biological versus the unaltered clone. There's a lot of conversation to be had. Who's family, who's true family, forced family, friends who are family, blood versus everything else. So it's a very interesting idea. I want to thank Jennifer Landa for that idea, who spurred forth that idea from Emery to let me go on from there to introduce Omega into the mix as well. I know she's been said she's a clone the whole time, so most likely I think Omega is a clone, but you never know. You never know. The next part of Omega, has she been mixed with a Jedi, or does she have Force powers? This is kind of the whole, I guess I should declare that a little better, because there have been, of course, theories that she has ability to touch the Force, whether she has some Force powers, especially was teased in the opening, the debut of the show. And throughout, there's been kind of that notion that maybe that's why she's so special, that she has ability to touch the Force, which would make sense if you think about it, because what is our end game with the cloning process? The end game with the cloning process is obvious. Well, I can't say obviously, but believe that we're trying to get Palpatine is looking for ways to, continue his lifespan out beyond a natural sense. We know that this is where that ends up in Rise of Skywalker. We know about that through Snoke. We know about that through Mandalorian and Moff Gideon. This is just a cog in that wheel. So what are the chances that Omega has the ability to connect with the Force? Again, I should actually point out, obviously, with what we learned in Ahsoka and Sabine, everybody has the ability to connect with the Force. So in this case, it's not just connect with the Force if we all can, but has a higher midichlorian count or has a higher ability to connect with the Force without being trained. Maddie gives it a 6 million to 1. 6 million to 1. And that might be because of how I phrased it. I initially said Chansey should mix with a Jedi or has Force powers. I guess both are kind of separate in a way. She could just be a clone who could touch the Force, which makes her special by in and of herself. I think that's more likely. The other possibility was this specifically an experiment where perhaps that's why she's female. Perhaps they mixed the Jango Fett gene with the Force gene of somebody else, like a Luminara Unduli. So they would use her in Rebels as a prisoner, that kind of thing. Potentially, maybe they spliced the genes a little bit, and the connection with the Force came through that. I don't know. Seems like a possibility. That is a 6 million to 1. I'm going to say a lot higher odds than that. A lot better odds than that. I'm going to say 200 to 1. I'll give it 200 to 1. I feel like they might have developed it more during season 2 if they were going to release it in such a fashion. It's going to be a big reveal at the end. But perhaps they decided to hold back and not tease it as to not make it so obvious. But I think we have a reason why she's female. I think we have a reason why she's teased that Force relation potentially. And that might be a reason why is she so special, because maybe Palpatine needs someone, a clone, who can touch the Force, because obviously Palpatine wants his clone body to be able to connect with the Force. Maybe that's an issue. That goes back, real quick, that goes back to an old story I have. Back in the days when I was on Fatooine.net, which was a offshoot of the Force.net. We were the rogue gallery there. We didn't like to follow rules. We were a little bit trollish, I'm not going to lie. We like to do our own thing. But there was this big theory about whether Palpatine and Sidious were the same, or whether the Palpatine we saw was a clone of Darth Sidious. And we had people really pissed off at us, me specifically, because I had this possible theory that, well, it's obvious that Sidious and Palpatine are the same. And I had this pitch. I was like, well, you know what? Hear me out. I think maybe they're both working for each other. Sidious cloned himself. And that was the reason why the Jedi Council could never sense the Force in Palpatine, because the clones are unnatural. They're not natural life, so the Force doesn't connect with them. That was my theory. This is obviously before the Clone Wars and before the idea that Yoda had an ambush where he talked about the clones being individuals, and that's a much better storyline, I'm not going to lie. But back in the day, these theories that I had thrown out there, I was like, maybe the Force doesn't touch the clones because it's not natural life. It's science. It's not nature. So when he cloned himself, Palpatine doesn't have connection to the Force. Just Sidious does. But Sidious can't work in front of the Jedi Order. He can't work in front of them, or else they know he was the Sith Lord they were looking for. So he uses Palpatine as his kind of trophy, or his front, as I should say, while Sidious is behind the scene doing all the dark side Jedi, dark side Force Sith stuff. A lot of people had a lot of problems with that. They were very angry. I just thought it was fun. But I digress. That's kind of how I kind of sort of still go with the theory about Omega possibly having Force connectivity. Maybe that's what I'm going for. I don't know. But I'm going to give it 250 to 1. Now, where does she end the Bad Batch story? I think this is pretty clear to me. I think she has a happy ending of some kind. I don't know whether that means she's retired with the bunch on Pabu, or whether she is off on her own adventures with Fee, or maybe she's off on her adventures with Emery, or maybe she's off on adventures with Boba. Maybe she's off doing her own things. Maybe she's living with Hunter Wrecker and Echo. Who knows? We don't really know. But I do think a happy ending is in her story, or at least a mostly happy ending. All right, moving on to Emery. We might as well talk about it. Chance, she's the bio sister of Jango. Great idea from Jennifer Landa. I love that idea. I love the idea that maybe no one really knows much, and that she's working with Mount Tantus as a way to kind of get to her, or to get to Boba. I don't know what would be her motivations necessarily, but that does spring some ideas. What does the bio sister of Jango want, especially with the involved with these clones? Does she look at the clones like her family? She always thinks of Omega like family. So what does that lead you to believe? Emery, as far as Maddie goes, she says 4,000 to 1 that she's the bio sister of Jango. I will say, I'm going to go with something like 5,000 to 1. I don't honestly think she is the bio sister of Jango. I just love the idea, and if it does happen, I'd be excited to see where that goes. But if I have to predict, if I have to give odds on, 5,000 to 1, that's what I'm going to go with. Chances are that she helps Omega out, or now, because that's the question we have. At the end of season 2, it felt like she was going to help her out. What was unclear was, is it because she's trying to help her out, or is this another plot of Hemlock's giving her the sense of potential to escape without actually letting her escape? Does she turn back onto Omega and the boys? Does she end up working for Hemlock even more hardcore than we know? Maddie gives the chance that she helps a 2-to-1. 2-to-1 that she helps. I mean, I guess technically you can say she's 2-to-1 that she helps, because I do think she's going to help initially. But whether it's real or genuine, that's the real question. And I'm going to give that a 15-to-1. 15-to-1 that she helps out and is genuine with her help. So I still think it's end up going to be that, but would not be surprised if it ends up being a case of that she turns on Omega and gives her one more chance, one more sense of betrayal before. I mean, she even will see Crosshair might even save her from Emery, and Crosshair could even teach that as a family lesson. Watch out who you trust. Yes, be trusting, but don't be all trusting. Okay. Now, where does Emery end the story? This is the one I have no idea about. I kind of feel like she's going to go. I kind of feel like she's going to end up sacrificing herself for Omega, or she might, if she's a bad guy, end up being in Mount Tantus when Mount Tantus is taken care of. I don't know if Mount Tantus is going to go. Obviously, we don't know that yet. But I feel like I don't believe she's making it out of this story alive. I'm a death guy, though. I feel like I look for death everywhere because that's what always happens. And then all of a sudden, no one dies. So maybe I'm not the one who should be doing the odds for death. But all right, next up, question here. Sid, the chance that Sid appears. Maddie says 4-to-1. 4-to-1. I don't know. I'm going to say I will give it also 5-to-1, I think. I think she does appear. I think she's got to appear. She was a big character for season 1 and season 2. I can't believe we go through all 3 seasons, or all of the 3rd season, without seeing her at least one more time, especially in the aftermath of her portrayal of the Badgers. So I think she definitely appears. The bigger question would be, does she have a chance at redemption? Maddie says no way in hell. There's no chance that Sid redeems herself. I'm going to give it a 20-to-1 shot that she redeems herself. We have a lot of redemption stories in play. Obviously, Crosshair being the big one. Can Sid redeem herself? She can. She definitely gave off vibes of not being, proud of herself, not being happy with herself. We did have that episode with the Riot Racing and was it Keith David? I want to say Keith David was the voice of the other. I can't remember. I should know this, but the criminal that she was owing, and he made sure to stop them and say that she's always looking out for herself. I kind of feel like that was laid out possibly for more than just the betrayal at the end, because she doesn't like that. She doesn't like being called that, and she obviously feels that that's not the case, even if she does do it. So there's this sense in my mind that eventually she'll redeem herself in some kind of way, like probably like a Hondo kind of way. Not that she's going to run in and be the hero of the day, but maybe she finds a way to let them escape or get them out of the fire. And she'll get something out of it as well. She'll get the sense of, I'm a good person after all. Maybe that's all it will be. But I think she will actually see the potential of redeeming herself. All right. Hemlock, the villain of the hour. Chance he dies. Well, I think that this is a 1-to-1. I think this is a 1-to-1 shot. I think he's going to die. He is the bad guy. He is I don't know. I think that there's no way that he can be anything but dead by the end of the show. Because he's going to be the villain that they kill to succeed, to finish the story of the clones, to finish the story of the batch, and lead on to other things. Somebody will have to take over. Maybe that's where Pershing takes on or moves on. Maybe Emery takes over for him. Who knows? At the end of the day, we need a death of a bad guy. And I think Jimmy Simpson's character will come to an untimely end Yeah, that's where I'm going to go with that one. Now, the important part is, does he complete his task? Does he complete his task? I think it's a 40 to 1 shot that he completes his task. And Matt agrees with me, by the way. Matt agrees with me. I believe that he does enough work that he sets it in place, whatever he's looking for. He's going to set in place in motion the future for the cloners to obviously continue his work, and he'll make a big finish of I don't know. He won't complete it all the way. Obviously, it's going to take more. They're still working on it as far as the time Mandalorian goes, but he'll have made a big first step in that direction. That's why he's there. Okay, now tick. Oh, Tech RIP. Did you guys see the Kiner music tweet out there that Sean put out, the Valentine, which was the "I'd Fall for You" with a picture of Tech? Yes, I had heartbreak. I was distraught. It made me well up. It was not okay. It was not okay. Um, I don't even. I mm, I don't know. I don't know what to say, but I was not okay with it. Um, the big one I have is there's a chance of appearance. Chance of appearance. Um, Flashback or not. I think we've seen appearance of him, but that's flashback potentially. Now, if there is not a flashback, that's different tale. I think it's a 1-to-1 shot. We see Tech on our screens. Whether it's actually him, that's another story. I say it is a 100-to-1 shot that he's around. Or you know what? Maddie puts it best. 99-to-1. 99-to-1. Oh, Maddie. That's pretty cruel of you, Maddie. I got to say, a 99-to-1 shot. 90-to-1 shot that he survived the fall, or he brought back as a cyborg, or brought back as a new clone without memories. All of them. 99-to-1 shot. And I'm going to say that I think a lot of people are holding on to this hope. I honestly think that, again, I have to wait to see how the story is told before I make any final final judgment on it, as it were. Because we're always so quick to judge. People jumped on Asajj is back in the trailer. Oh my God, that's awful. Wait to hear the story. Oh, Darth Maul's coming back. He was cut in half. Wait to hear the story. I'm guilty of that too sometimes. My initial gut says that Tech coming back kind of, we all love to hate that episode, but we love to hate it because it really touches us. It really gets us. And to have him die in a way that he did to save his teammates, to save his brothers, to save Omega, that is a story that is sad, but so powerful. And any chance of him making appearance again lessens that to a degree, at least in my gut. I will wait to judge the story. So if it does come back, I will not make judgments on it. But I can't lie and say my initial instinct would be, I'd like to him. I think he should stay dead. That character should stay dead. That's the power of that story. So I definitely don't think he should survive the fall. I definitely think that would be the worst way to do it. If you had brought back as a cyborg, potentially, some kind of mechanized beast kind of thing. Now, bring him back as a clone without the original memories, that I could almost get behind because it doesn't lessen it at all, because it's still Tech, but not Tech. And it's kind of like what they did with Gamora at the end of Avengers Endgame. Kind of did in Chuck, if you remember that show back in the day. It's not him. He wouldn't have the same memories. He wouldn't have the same advances. He wouldn't have the same development that he had with Omega. But you could kind of leave it off that he walks down that road again. He's walking, like, as we end his story, we see him kind of starting down that path to regain at least some of what Tech had gained. So if that's the case, I think that'd be my favorite way to do it if he's going to do it. But who knows? Okay. Next up, Rex. Commander Rex. Commander Rex is definitively, or Captain Rex, sorry, is definitively one of the most interesting characters that we have. He's never had his own story. He's not like the star of any of his tales, but yet he has the most connectivity. We see him in the Clone Wars, big time with Ahsoka. We see him in Bad Batch, be the featured guy who comes in and helps the Batch out. We know we see him again in Rebels as he comes back and reunites with Ahsoka. He's always kind of there, and he's kind of like the face of the clones, as it were. It's kind of an unintended joke. The face of the clones is actually Jango Fett. I know. But as far as like, if you think about the clones, he's the first one you think about. So I'm very interested to see where he goes, because quite frankly, at the end of this, we know the next time we see him, at least chronologically, is he is off getting the dune sandworms and hanging out with some with the wolf and Crazy Gregor, and leading a weirdly interesting life given how committed he was to helping the clones out before. Yes, he returns to Ahsoka and helps the rebels out, but he seems in a very different place than he is when we see him in Bad Batch. So I really want to see where he ends up. I almost feel like it's going to be a down thing for Rex. I feel like Rex might be so depressed at the end of this that he's given up the battle. This is where he takes the clones he has been able to save, maybe Wolf and Gregor, the only ones he could save, and he takes them and says, all right, we're going to go away and get away from this whole thing. Maybe not depressed is maybe too strong of a word, but a very sad moment, which ends up, my odds are, one of the biggest questions we've heard from about Rex, as far as speculation about Bad Batch. We have seen Rex, we have seen Cody, we have not seen the two together. Will we get a chance of reuniting with Cody? Maddie gives the great odds of 501 to 1. Maddie's having fun with these odds, I'm not going to lie, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Maddie, I wish you were on board. I think the QT 501 to 1 part aside, I think he's got to be together this year. I'm going to give it a 50 to 1. 50 to 1. So you see, the 501 is in that. That's my joke way of doing it. I believe we get Rex and Cody together. I'm hedging my anticipation. I think people are expecting a big reunion. I don't think we get a big reunion. I think we get a reunion, and they're going to work together. But I think it might be smaller than we think it is. Hopefully, it doesn't be too disappointing for people who are really expecting something more. Obviously, Cody tried to kill Obi-Wan because of Order 66, and Rex was able to fight it off. So I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. I think it would be great to have that conversation. Does it fit with the Bad Batch, though? I don't know. Maybe that could be a great Tales. I think that's the kind of story that could be a great Tales story, where we see Rex and Cody working together in this season, but much like we saw Luke and Ahsoka together in Book of Boba Fett, we haven't seen that connection. We don't know we haven't seen the first time Ahsoka and Luke had a conversation where Ahsoka learned that Luke was Anakin's son. We don't know any of that yet. And that's a story that has to be told at some point, I think. It might be the case here where we see Rex and Cody working together, and then we save that for some other story where we get the actual first time that Rex and Cody reunite after Order 66. And that would be better, I think, honestly, because that would be a way we could actually feature that as a solid, like, introspective view of it. Because quite frankly, if we do it in Bad Batch, I think it has to be cut down because it's not the main point of the story. It feels like we can't give that enough time to really give it the space and the respect it deserves. So make that its own Tales episode of its own. The whole thing is just that first meeting. I'd love to see that, and I hope we have the ability to separate that kind of stuff. Let's let that happen organically. So, chances of ending his time with the rebellion for now. This is where I got to say, this is the point of, does he stop being with Rebellion now? This is where he retires from the Rebellion before he comes back later on. I'm going to give this a 5 to 1 shot. Maddie gives a 300 to 1. I think it's a 5 to 1 shot that Rex decides that there's some kind of ending, whatever the big ending is, that they've either A, done their job and they don't have anything more to give. Like the Empire, he can't fight the Empire at this point, so we're going to leave. I just did my duty to save my brothers. I did my best. Because the clone story, it feels like that's the ending, right? The ending is the clones' final chapter. Sure, we'll see the characters later on, but the overall story of the clones, that's where this ends. And I think that's what happens with Rex. I think he does his duty and does his job. And whether I think he gets tired and says, I don't know if I'm ready to fight another war. I don't know if I'm ready to fight a war against the Empire. So he's going to retire and go off with Wolf and Gregor to a sunny planet. before Ahsoka and the crew get him back for the rebellion. So that's what I think for now. I'm gonna say 5-1. So this question for me is one I haven't thought about yet. We haven't seen it yet. Does Rex get a chance to confront Darth Vader? Now, obviously, Darth Vader has not been in the Bad Batch yet. I do have questions about him appearing later on. I have a few topics left. Is this the chance that Rex gets to confront Anakin Skywalker turned Darth Vader? We don't even know yet. Does Rex know that Anakin is Vader? I don't think we do necessarily. I could be mistaken. I don't know if we ever find out. I mean, I think in Rebels, Ahsoka has to have told him at some point, but we don't really know. Is this where Rex found out? Does Rex actually have a chance and Vader sees Rex? And I almost want to say Vader confronting Rex. Matt gives this one a 4-1. 4-1. That's a lot higher than I'm going to give it because, again, I think this is something that maybe doesn't take place now. But I think there's a chance. So I'm going to give it a 100-1 shot that this happens. Does Vader appear? I think he does. I think it makes sense for him to appear. Not just from a business standpoint, which Vader appearing in a business standpoint always makes sense. But at least story-wise, it makes sense too. We know Palpatine's appearing. We know this is a big Palpatine plot, so Palpatine's enforcer Vader will probably be sniffing around somewhere at some point. So does Rex fight Vader? I mean, I don't think he fights Vader necessarily, but does he confront Vader? I don't know it's quite yet, but maybe. All right, Boba Fett. Where? Well, here's where. Does he appear? I think 100% he appears. I think it's a 1-1 that he appears. I don't think there's any chance that Boba Fett doesn't appear in this. Maddie says 5-1. But quite frankly, with a story about the clones, with young Boba where he is, I think it'd be a mistake not to have, as Ken said earlier, a Fett family reunion. It's a missed opportunity if we don't. Could you do it without him? Sure, of course you could. But I have a feeling we're going to have Boba Fett at least meet Omega. I think he's going to meet the crew. I think he's going to be involved somehow with the storyline. I don't know whether it be the good side or the bad side. Who knows? We'll have to figure that out. But I think it's a 1-1 shot that he wins. He definitely makes an appearance in this final season. Real quick, Jeremiah Morris. I know I'm lying. I said I was doing them all at the end, but I kind of like doing them as they come along. Jeremiah Morris in the chat says the Rex Vader thing is my theory, and that's what makes him lose hope. That could be it. Actually, could be it. Maybe Rex finds out that Vader is Anakin. That's kind of like the straw that broke his back. He can't do it anymore. He says the one he was most cared about, most believed in, is now working for the bad guys. He can't do that. So maybe that's a good point, Jeremiah. Very good point. All right, now back to Boba Fett. Chance of beating Omega. Manny says 500-1 for that one. I think it's a more 50-1. There's an outside chance that Boba helps break her out, but then he doesn't really meet her and talk with her. But with the whole Omega as the unaltered clone, potentially or whatever, being the young clone didn't age up, that's why I think Boba's got to meet her, because they're the same age at this point, and they're close enough to the same age. I don't know if exactly the same batch, as it were. Given her age, I think it would just be a missed opportunity for him not to meet her specifically. All right, chance of beating the crew. 500-1 is what Maddie says. 500-1. I don't know. How do you think about that one, meeting the rest of the crew? I think it's actually more likely that he meets the crew than he meets Omega. Because the interesting point is only that he has, the way he would come into play would be maybe the Hunter and Wrecker reach out to a bounty hunter to help him out. That might be Fennec Shand, but it might be Boba Fett as well. So I kind of have the feeling, whereas it's more important he meets Omega, it's more likely he meets the crew. It's quite frankly, he might meet the whole shebang, quite frankly. Maddie does not like that, 500-1, but that's okay. 500-1. I'll go with, what did I say for Omega? What did I say for chance for meeting Omega? 100-1? Same as I'll give the same. I'll give the same as meaning Omega. 'Cause I kind of feel like they're all going to meet. So, all right, chance of dueling Darth Bane. That's a totally different Bane. Cad Bane. The chance that Boba Fett duels with Cad Bane. Maddie gives this one a 900 to 1 shot. I gave it a 900 to 1 shot as well because the initial reason people ask is because technically they're drawing from some unaired parts of the Clone Wars, and obviously one of those was the Boba Fett and Cad Bane duel where Boba Fett got the dent in his helmet. We saw reels of that at Celebration previously. However, the reason why I think it's a lot higher than that is because we already have that now in the Book of Boba Fett. The end of Book of Boba Fett, I think, is what we're going to get for the Cad Bane Boba Fett duel. And that's going to be the case. I mean, is there a case where that is a sequel duel and that we do get to see the first duel here? Maybe Cad Bane beats Boba here, and that's why Boba beats him later on. Maybe that's the Boba Fett arc. It's a possibility. I think it's higher than 900 to 1. I'll give it 250 to 1. Boba Fett ends up fighting with Bane somehow, some way, shape, or form. And that Bane wins, and that's why Boba Fett is out of the story, potentially. We do know that Bane is in the story. We do know that for sure. We don't know Boba Fett is, but Bane definitely is. So, all right, how about Darth Vader? Darth Vader. Well, chance of appearance for Darth Vader. Chance of appearance for Darth Vader. Let's go to Maddie's odds. Maddie's odds, 66 to 1. Yes, I see you, Maddie. We all see you. We all see you. I think it's a lot higher than that, even though I can't go with the joke one. I think there's definitive at least 2 to 1 odds that he appears. Might not have a big appearance, but again, it comes down to I wish I could talk about just story and why it makes sense, because that'd be great. But it's a business as well. And you always want to put Vader in because Vader brings ratings. Vader brings love. Vader brings a lot of things. Anytime you see Vader on screen, like, oh shit, there he is. There's our boy. But I also does, like I said, he makes sense. It makes sense to have him in this storyline. Palpatine is a grandmaster of design of evil. This is a big plot for him with the clones, the cloning thing as well. So I think he's got to have his enforcer involved. The Vader hunts down the Bad Batch. That would definitely raise the ire of the Batch and maybe raise the likelihood that they're not going to get out of it. So. All right, how about Vader's chance of killing a Bad Batcher? Maddie says 1,000 to 1. I don't know what you guys think. What do you guys think? I think a chance of killing a Bad Batcher. A Bad Batcher? I think it's a lot higher than 1,000 to 1. Killing the Squad? That's 1,000 to 1 or higher. There's no way. This is not going to be a Rogue One type ending for sure. Especially because I think Omega for sure is not going to be killed. Does he kill Hunter or Wrecker or Echo? I don't think you put Vader on screen unless you do something with him. Unless he does have some kind of big impact on the story. I'm going to give it 50 to 1. 50 to 1 odds that he kills one of the Batchers. If I had to pick one, I think Echo would be the one. I think Echo is the last Batcher. I think Echo's done his thing. I think that Echo is the one who's most, shall we say, committed to the cause of the clones. And that's where I think Vader's going to be involved with the cloning aspect, even more than the Omega aspect per se. And I think Echo will stay behind to save his brothers, and Vader could take him out. I would make kind of a very scary but sad but appropriate kind of thing. So 51. Yeah. And Jerry, you agree 50 to 1 for Vader to kill a Bad Batcher. Just one. But one will be enough and one will be sad. So all right, how about Hunter? Let's see. Chance of death for Hunter. Wow. Maddie says 1 to 1. Ooh, Maddie thinks that Hunter's gonna die. Ooh, oh, wow. I can't give him 1 to 1 shot. I think Hunter. I agree that Hunter has a good shot of dying. Hunter has a good chance of sacrifice. But I kind of feel like Omega's gonna need Hunter at the end to well, let's be honest, you was to lose your mentor. And she already lost Tech. We already said she might lose Echo. losing Hunter would be a phenomenally sad part for Omega. But she is her first. Hunter was her first kind of mentor to a degree. But I think that's too much. No, I don't think Hunter goes. I think Hunter stays. I think Hunter is alive at the end. I think it's a 100 to 1 odds. I would say 250 to 1 odds that he dies. Far higher, far lower than Maddie seems to think. Maddie, how dare you? I think Papa Hunter and Omega have to get back together and having a somewhat happy ending. So that's what I'm going to say to that. As far as his next question here, chance of round 2 with I said it before, Darth Bane, not Darth Bane, Cad Bane. Hunter lost to Cad Bane before. Does he have a chance to beat him again? Maddie says 3 to 1 odds it happens. I happen to say close. I think about 5 to 1 odds that they happens again. And I think this time Hunter beats him. Because it's important that Hunter has gained experience. And I think you want to have your badass, and he is the badass of the crew. I mean, Wrecker is the big badass, but Hunter is the definitive badass kind of person. I think you want to give him a rematch, a bumper match. You lose round 1, you come back and you win round 2. So I'm going to say 5 to 1 there. So that's we'll go with that. Speaking of Wrecker, chance of death. Oof. I'm going to let you think about that one. Maddie's odds, he doesn't even give him odds. He said it's impossible to kill Wrecker. Quite frankly, I agree. I don't think you kill off the comic side relief like that. I don't think any chance in hell that he dies. He's like not. I mean, he's a guy. His character, he would sacrifice somebody, but his sacrificing himself would not work story-wise for me. Again, I can't judge until I see the story, but it's hard to see a storyline that makes sense that he sacrifices himself. His reaction to sacrifice is actually much better with this. Jeremiah saying I'm with Maddie with this one. I think Wrecker and Omega only make it out. That's a little harsh, Jerry. I feel like you're on my page, and I'm trying to be better at it. But I feel like we all predict death too much with these shows because this is a Disney Plus show. This is not Rogue One. I don't think everyone goes. But I understand that concept. I do think that you are correct, and that Wrecker and Omega are the highest chance to get out. That I will completely agree with you on. So impossible. I'm going to agree. I'm not going to say I'm going to agree. 999 million to 1. Next up is a question I have. Chance he conquers his fear of heights. Also impossible. You can't have Wrecker without a fear of heights. Right, how about a chance he rides the Zillow Beast? I saw this rumor out there. The Wrecker got on top and ride the Zillow Beast into action. Man, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? I don't think it's going to happen. I think that is probably about a Maddie says 20 to 1 shot. I'm going to say 50 to 1 shot. But man, what an energy that would be to see Wrecker running to the final battle. Maybe that's what happens. The final battle, the Bad Batch are the cavalry, and Wrecker comes in riding the Zillow Beast into action. That'd be a lot of fun. All right. 2 more to go before we wrap things up. Echo. There's so much that we don't know about Echo. His main thing is he's a Bad Batcher at heart, but he wasn't a Bad Batcher in the beginning. He became a Bad Batcher. He's also the one that is, like Tech had said, he's the last to join. Like he left, they moved on without him because he was much more invested in the actual clone side of things with Rex and crew. Given that the next time we see Rex, he's with Wolf and Gregor. Unless Echo decides to return to the Bad Batch, maybe that's the case. Maybe Echo decides to return to the Bad Batch after they finish their story. I think his chance to die is kind of high. Maddie says 6 to 1. I'm going to say 5 to 1. Again, I like likelihood to that. I think we do need to have some sacrifice in there as far as things go. And I know Crosshair is up there for that purpose, but sacrificing a good guy is also up there. I don't know if they would do both Crosshair and Echo. Maybe Echo dies saving Crosshair, and Crosshair saves the day and gets Omega out of there. At the end of the day, it's Hunter, Wrecker, Crosshair, and Omega running things together now. I don't know. For some reason, I just have a gut instinct that Echo is not going to make it out. He already died almost once before. He's not with Rex later on. I think things are pointing south for Echo. I'm sorry to say. I'm going to say 5-1 for me, 6-1 for Maddie. So, all right, we're going to end up with one final prediction. It is, of course, the most important of the predictions that we ever do on this show. Let's see. It's going to be this.
Who wants to see Hondo's book? Talk to me!
Hashtag Hondo Watch. Hashtag Hondo Watch for sure. Most important question we ever ask on this show. All right. Where do we go from here? Does Hondo appear in this season of the Bad Batch? Maddie says 1-1. I agree, 1-1, and I might be just willing it to happen. That's a bad batch odds maker that I'm being right now. I quite surely should not be giving those odds because, quite frankly, I want it to happen too badly. But I'm going to will it into existence. Hondo makes his appearance in season 3 for sure. Boom. That's what we're going with. Next up on the Hondo watch list, Hondo, chance that he actually is the one that helps Omega reunite with the crew. Maddie says 1-1. 1-1 on whether he helps Omega reunite the crew. That would make a lot of sense to me. I mean, if they're going to get a team together, they get some bounty hunters together, maybe at the end of the day, Hondo is the one that smuggles out Omega and Crosshair from Tantus and runs them straight to Hunter and Wrecker for some cash, for some credits, of course. So I'll agree with Natty 1-1. I don't know. I can say these odds are really probably shouldn't take them to Cano Bite for this batch. We're just too excited. Chance he helps Rex and the team instead of just Omega and the team. The other side of things, Rex and Echo in the clone battle. I'd love to see Hondo reunite with Rex. I think it'd be kind of fun. It'd be kind of cool to have them together again. And I'm going to say, Maddie says 1-1. I'll also say 1-1. Why not? All the Hondo, all the time. In all seriousness, I'm just hoping for one episode at least. We'd love to get him in a couple episodes, and maybe for the grand finale, that'd be great. But I'm hoping for it, and I'm loving it. And Jeremiah also believes we've got Hondo. I love the fact that you believe as well, Jeremiah. Thank you for being on board with Hondo Watch. And that's where we're going to end the show today. Another great show there for you guys. Thanks for popping on board and dealing with this special one-day live stream. Hopefully we'll be back normal schedule as we go on, as I'm trying to see, working with Kim and working with my scheduling here. It's been kind of, figuring out things has been a little rough, doing the best we can to be consistent. But yeah, hopefully it's your first time here like that. So hit that like, hit that subscribe. If you're listening on audio, give us a subscription there. Follow us, leave the 5-star rating, all that stuff. And if you want to help the channel even further, patreon.com/PLD Projects. Got Austin Cadell, Brandon Buckingham, Jeff Ultraman, and a whole lot others. Thank you guys so much for helping to keep the lights on. It's kind of expensive, all the podcasts they do. So without you guys, it'd be really more difficult to do. So I appreciate your support always. And we have some great stuff going on as well. So check it out. And if you can't, I get it. I totally get it. It's tough times out there. Whenever you can, if you can just share this, get the word out, make people let people in on our little community and see what happens. So I appreciate everybody who stopped by. Galaxy stopped by, Ken Knapsack, of course, William Harold, Jeremiah Morris. I really appreciate you guys all. I will see you next time. I will see you Wednesday, I believe. It's going to be Wednesday. Again, the only other chance would be if it's Wednesday at 9 o'clock, then Matt and I will hold off and do a show on Thursday. But next week, definitively, we're going to be breaking down the first 3 episodes of Season 3. Bad Batch coming soon. I can't wait. I've heard everything great from the screeners, from people who have talked about it. They say it's a show to behold. Powerful, great, excellent, all good stuff I've heard. I've not heard one bad thing yet. So I can't wait to get my hands on at least the first 3 this week. Stay tuned till next time. And as always,
may the Force be with you always.